Hey everybody, here's another Bible reading. I'm Brian Lee Davidson Terka, and we're going through the book of John. We're in chapter 11 right now, and we are going to be reading verses 45 through the end of the chapter at verse 57. Okay, so there's some sinister things going afoot right now. Jesus has just raised Lazarus from the dead. Now, uh, moving down the chapter, we have a plot to kill Jesus. Okay, let's look at this. This plot to kill Jesus. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believed in him. So people are believing like Mary and Martha, and Lazarus believe he is the Messiah. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests of the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. "What are we accomplishing?" they asked. "Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation." So they're worried about losing politically. They have power. They If people are believing in him, they feel Rome's going to take away what they have. Maybe they suspect that he has an allegiance with Rome. But yeah, they're playing politics right here. So this is what's going on. They're worried about their personal power. Then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. "You know nothing at all. You do not recognize that it is better for you that one man die for for the people than that a whole nation perish." So, like many people in power, they he's kind of twisting things. It's like, well, if we just get rid of this one guy, that's better than all of us perishing. And keep in mind, what they're worried about now is losing power. You know, maybe they told them. Who knows? Maybe they told themselves it's like, oh, if they get rid of the temples, they're just going to want to kill us. A big logic jump. Um, well, it was a logic jump to say, hey, they're going to take away our temples. So then we're going to perish. And it could be it's like, well, this is our livelihood. What else are we going to do? So we have to protect our religious business the best we can, you know, and so I mean they're justifying Jesus' death now. It's they're it's like it's better that one man perish than all of a nation perish, because the nation relies on us. We're the important ones. And if we're gone, it's destruction for the nation, really. So a lot of self-importance here, a lot of arrogance in justifying the death of Jesus. He did not say this on his own, but the high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. And not only for that nation, but for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life. Okay, that's interesting. He did not say this on his own, but as a high priest that year, he prophesied Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. And not only for the nation, but for the scattered children of God, to bring them together. So apparently there's a prophecy at hand too. Now they may not be putting this together at the time. So from that day they plotted to take his life. It could be interpreted that it's like, okay, well, we're just doing our part in this, God. We're in this because, we're the villain in your story because God wants us to be the villain. I don't think that's what's happening. I think what's happening is that they said this prophecy, but, ignored it. I think that because they're talking about Rome, I think they still wanted a Jesus that was going to kick the Romans out of Jerusalem. That's the kind of Messiah that they wanted, and I think they still wanted that. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life, and it looks like they were already plotting to take his life, because we have reports of that. They just weren't as hands-on about it. Therefore, Jesus no longer moved about publicly among the people of Judea. Instead, he withdrew to a region near the wilderness, a village called Ephraim, where he stayed with his disciples. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, many went up from the country of Jerusalem for their ceremonial cleansing before Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and they stood in the temple courts. And as they stood still in the temple courts, they asked one another, "What do you think? Isn't he coming to the festival at all?" Because he had been coming to the festivals. People were used to it. The chief priest of the Pharisee had given orders that anyone who found out where Jesus was should report it so that they might arrest him. Now, there's an opportunity. There's so many opportunities for power and authority to do the right thing, to say this is the Messiah, we should learn from him. We're waiting for the Messiah while he's on earth. We should learn from him. We should come closer to God at this time. But we see in this passage, one, people are worried about losing their power. That should give us, the first hint. Now, as for the prophecy that the high priest gave, you combine in context of the rest of this passage, where you have the religious leaders ready to kill the Messiah. On one hand, you have the same man saying, you have the same man saying that it's better that one man should die than all of them, than a whole nation. This to a people who are worried about losing their power. And he's going on to say that this alongside a prophecy that Jesus is going to be the one who unites all of the believers. So even the ones that are scattered abroad. Well, I think that prophecy is there, and the prophecy is truth, but I think that they're also ignoring the prophecy, considering the current events and the current desire to maintain their own power structure. So yeah, God can speak through a donkey. God can prophesize through a religious leader who doesn't necessarily have all the scruples there and is leading a lot of other people who have already really, really wanted Jesus dead. So they're waiting for another festival. Jesus has been known to pop up at these festivals. But the chief priest, but he doesn't show up to this festival, and the chief priest says, it's like, okay, you know what? Keep an eye out for him because we're going to arrest him. So Jesus is holding back from some of his public appearances. And people who should want Jesus in their life, the religious people, apparently want him out of the way. Not apparently, they do want him out of the way. So that's something to ask ourselves, you know, and I understand it's hard being a church leader. I get that. But I think that we're often in a place where we have to ask ourselves, is institution being held above people? Is the church being held above people? Because Jesus didn't come to die on the cross for a building. He didn't come to die for a religious structure, a set of rules that seem to make us feel like we satisfied God with our rule maintenance. You know, that's not what Jesus came for. He came for the people. He came for humanity. He came to pay the price for the sins of the world. So we should ask ourselves, when we look at leadership, does this show a people or a person or a society of people that are reaching out to people? You know, or are they trying to maintain a checklist that's given to them by the particular institution they're at? You know, putting check marks on is like, okay, good religious person, good religious person, good religious person. Is that what we're seeing? If that's what we're seeing, we should be concerned, because Jesus loved the people. Jesus paid the price for the people. He came to save people. He didn't come to save a building full of stained glass windows or altars or long wooden couches or little things that burn incense and candles, you know? That's not who he paid the price for. People are always going to be more important than all of those things. God knows that. Apparently, it doesn't look like the religious leaders who wanted Jesus dead understood that. And it's too bad. It's too bad. It's unfortunate. But God uses that for his glory and to institute the way that to bring in front of us the way that he's going to save the world. So keep coming back and do your part to be a good neighbor. Wash your hands, stay inside, practice social distancing, and show that you care about people enough to keep them safe. Okay, you guys take care. Bye-bye. I love you, and see you tomorrow.